Welcome to Beyond the Syllabus, where we talk with superintendents, curriculum leaders, and education innovators who are rethinking what school can be and how it can better serve the academic and personal needs of every learner. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Syllabus. Super excited for our guest today. Here with me is Dr. Jonathan Cooper, Superintendent of Mason City Schools, a high-performing school district in the suburbs of Cincinnati, Ohio, and one of the most diverse districts in the Midwest with over 100 different languages spoken in the hallways. Jonathan, thanks so much for being here with me.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here.
Super excited for our conversation. Listen, in reading and preparing for this episode today, the recurring theme was that you are someone who leads from the front lines, whether it was piloting COVID-19 research or hopping in the back of an ambulance with a student who needed your help. What is it about your leadership style that makes you just want to be in there with the community?
Great question. So for me, leadership is all about, in this role, serving the community, and that means when our students need something, they are always first in front of mind. So whatever they need. So if it's jumping in an ambulance, just to make sure that a kid feels confident that they have a trusted adult with them, so I can hand them off to their parents and then be there with their parents to talk that through. I love rolling my sleeves up and serving in that way. It's kind of that's when I feel like I'm on mission. This is what I do. It's my purpose. It aligns with what I believe. I have three words that I kind of try to live by, and it's love, learn, lead. And if I can live those out on a day-to-day basis, I feel like I'm living the legacy I'm supposed to be doing here. So that's, and I did my research, in school on authentic leadership, and I think everyone that steps into a leadership role has to do some deep reflection internally and understand thyself, and so that they can give their self authentically. And so for me, that's what it looks like. It's out there connecting with kids. I just came from our high school, and just seeing what the kids are up to, hearing what they need, and then trying to make that happen.
I think it's amazing, and I try to embody a similar leadership style. I mean, for me, it's just always being with our customers, being in the classroom with them. It's easy to sit at our desks and theorize things and map out strategies, and it's a whole different thing to see them play out where we intend them to play out. So I think it's super crucial. So as far as the piloting the COVID-19 research goes, can you walk us through a little bit, like what happened right when COVID hit March 2020? And how did that relationship with Ohio State come into fruition?
Yeah, that was an interesting time for all of us, as I'm sure all your listeners will remember. We kind of took it as, once we got ourselves stabilized and made sure everybody was okay. Obviously safety and well-being are number one priorities. But once we established that, we started to build some rhythms as a team, and we started to ask the question, how can we make the most of this moment and be a beacon of hope in a time that feels very lost, and create some stability, not just for our community, but for the other communities in the state of Ohio and beyond. And so we started to look at how we do everything. We were driving our decisions by research and data. And so we started to build a collaboration with the governor, and I was fortunate enough to connect with the governor and his team at the time, and that was Governor DeWine and his team at the time. But we were able to sit down with the Department of Health and say, if we could design a safe method to begin to get kids back in school, so that learning and connectivity, because what we were noticing was the longer students were out, the more they were isolated, and that social isolation, we just know, based on the research, it's just not good for kids. And so we thought, well, what can we do? And so we started to build with their scientists a plan, and we were very fortunate to be the pilot school to build that plan in place. And it was, it was messy at first. It was clunky. We took some national news on it, but it was one of those things where we felt like it was the right thing to do to lead in that moment. And I have been blessed to have a group of leaders around me that, they always look at opportunities, even challenges, as ways for us to get better and to say, hey, how can we take it to the next level? So that was the piece. And so we had brand new pilot and testing with our kids. We had kids coming in, we had parents coming in, understanding what COVID is, how do we safely interact with each other. And we collected lots of data, and we would share it with the state and with the rest of the country. And so that is how that process started. And we learned a lot of lessons through that, and it was a great way for us to serve our community at the time.
That's awesome. To me, the thing that sticks out about that story is trust, right? The trust that you have to have in your team to take on a pilot like that, the trust that your team needs to have in you and trust in your decision making, the trust that the community needs to have in all of this. How did that play out in the midst of it? Where did trust come in?
Well, when you start to invite people in, when you see all the news and everything going on with COVID, to come in and actually go through that process, and our parents first and foremost had to trust that we were doing things well with the research, that we were just in the safety of their kids, so they were trusting us with their kids. And so one of the ways that we did that is we did not make this a mandatory moment for people. We made it a very much a when you're ready, a choice. And so we had to create hybrid programs, online programs, and in-person programs, and that took a lot. That was a big lift for all of us. We didn't have all the AI tools that we have today then, and so we built, and so we worked really, really diligently to personalize the approach for families when they were ready. And so that in itself gave them a little bit more control over the decision. And what I have found in leadership in general is when people have voice in the process and the decision making, and they feel like they have some control over the decision and how that goes, it goes from a buy-in to believe in. And that believe in is that's a culture that, and I will say honestly, that culture is something we built leading into that. So that's where that trust started. It doesn't just happen in that moment. It was all the work we do day to day with our students and our families. And you probably find that in your company and with your clients that yeah, trust doesn't just happen in that moment. That's a moment that contributes to it, but those are all those decisions you make are votes in the direction of a deeper trust that you're working on with your folks.
100%. It reminds me of a Warren Buffett quote. He said it takes, 10, 15 years to build a reputation and about 5 minutes to destroy it.
It's
So
true.
all those moments build up into what is a
Yes.
trusting relationship, and all it takes is one moment to break it.
Yeah, it's an investment, and it was not just trust with our families and our students, but it was our staff, because staff, we had to give them some choice in that as well. If staff didn't quite feel comfortable, or they might have had health compromises in their immediate family or their loved ones, we try to create spaces for them as well to be
Yeah.
there. And a lot of organizations were just cutting folks. Like we have a largest transportation system in the county. Instead of cutting, we thought of creative ways to keep our folks employed during that time so they could do things. So that also just builds longer term trust, I think, in the organization because we cared for them. When people
Yeah.
feel cared for, it's a little easier to trust.
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, even at a student level, right? Like there is a clear difference in a classroom when students know that their teacher cares,
Yes,
right?
you're right.
Uh, and just being in classrooms over the course of the last couple of years here, it's immediately clear which classrooms are which.
Yes, it's evident, and that comes down to for us, we have three big rocks that we talk about a lot in our culture here. So we talked about culture being the number one rock, and that is an intentional investment in how we do life together. It's the language we use together, the behaviors we expect of each other, the experience we hope to create for anyone that walks in our door. So that's like our big rock. And then we have inclusive excellence, that when someone does walk into our environment, we're such a diverse district that we want people to feel not just welcome, but that they feel at home. Like as soon as they come in, they may not speak the same language as everybody else in the class, but that's okay. There's still ways to make people feel at home. And when they feel at home, they feel safe. When kids feel safe, when staff feel safe, they're more engaged, they're more willing to take risks, they're more willing to innovate. And so that's kind of our big rock two. And then personalization is our big rock three, looking for ways to make sure the person is always at the center of all the decisions that we're making. So that was the bedrock or the foundation of how we headed into that crisis. And it just got even, I guess, more real as we were in it. And so as we were going through that time, it became even more clear to people what that really means.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Let's dive deeper on that personalization piece. I know you guys are a model district in the region with regards to personalized learning, and as you just said, personalization at the human level, right? What does that mean to you guys, and what are some initiatives you have going on that resemble it?
Okay, so so I've been in the district about 11 years, and probably my first year here, I was a chief innovation officer. And I remember I was attending a conference slash workshop, and people were talking about personalization and what does it mean in the future. And I think it might have been Knowledge Works or someone at the time that was sharing kind of their framework for it. And so we took that and started to look at, because it's something when I was a classroom teacher almost 20 years ago now, that was that experience in the classroom. When you see a student and when you can personalize for them, their engagement levels just go through the roof. And so we said, well, what if we could do that for all of our students? And it's overwhelming to think about at first, but we started to build systems around it. And then we started to build a network of people that really understood personalization at a deeper level through our district, kind of build a team of teams approach. And once that team of teams was established, they started to model things. And we had teachers going in and observing other teachers. And then we had look fors, and we had these cards that people would walk around with and say, okay, this is what personalization looks like. And that was helping to train us over time, giving good, thoughtful feedback and tying our performance into how we're personalizing and making sure that people understood that it was like we have individualization, we have differentiation, and we have personalization. And how do you move in that continuum? It doesn't have to be perfect, but really, I mean, it just started to make sense to people the more they saw the engagement levels increase with our students. We are now, I don't know, 8 years into that process, and we have processes and systems all over with our curriculum, our assessment, with the learning design that's all built around personalization and the different levels that we're looking for. And now we've moved that into our staff professional learning as well. We just had one last week where everyone had a chance to choose what pathway they wanted to be on. And once they're on their pathway, then there's choices within there that meet their personal needs based on data. And so that's like the big picture of the journey that we've been on. There's so many layers to it. And I mean, you can always get on our website and we have all of it posted. So if you have a listener who's like, well, what does it look like practically? Go to Mason Schools, search
Google.
us on Google, find us on chat, wherever. And all of our stuff is posted out
Cool.
there in our personalization guide. And it tells you the different principles of personalization that we, try to hold to, and how we've approached that. But it's changed the game here. And so, if you go out into our buildings today, you see lots and lots of evidence of kids taking ownership of their learning in real positive ways.
That's amazing. And you mentioned it too with the staff piece, right? Like having voice and having ownership over the work that you're doing. One thing I want to ask you though is we talk a lot about engagement, right? You talked a lot about it in your
Hmm.
description, explanation of personalization. We talk a lot about it as kind of our cornerstone of what we hope to do for districts. How do you define student engagement?
Well, for us, you think of when a student is in flow, or any learner for that matter, whether it's an adult learner or they are so ingrained in what they're doing that they're going to go beyond what you even would think would the expectation would be. So it's no longer about meeting a standard. It's like, okay, this kid, the standard's met easily. It's now they have taken their learning and they are starting to ask questions to go beyond where we even started. And so that level of curiosity begins to become very evident with our learners. And then you see those, they start asking to go on and do other projects that are like spin-offs of this. And so that's when you see this ownership shift from the design of the lesson to now the ownership of the student taking it way beyond where the lesson was originally designed. And so that's something that we do try to watch and monitor. How many of our students in a classroom setting are going beyond, and how do we know? And so that's when we talk about those look fors and we're going through, and as administrators or teachers making observations, that's something that we look for. We'll ask our students, what are you learning? Why are you learning it? If the why is, well, I'm just trying to meet the standard, well, then we're probably not there yet. If the why is, well, Dr. Cooper, I got so curious about this because I was in a class, I heard this, or I saw this somewhere else, I brought it in, my teacher figured out how to personalize that and meet the standard at the same time, then we're starting to get to the right place. So those are
Yeah.
some of the pieces of evidence we're looking for, but we want to make sure there's voice involved, there's choice involved, there's a level of ownership that has shifted from the designer of the learning to the student being the person taking ownership of that and taking it beyond the original design.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's pretty aligned with the way we define it. And for us, the kind of fundamental pillar of engagement is this intrinsic desire, right? We want
Yeah.
a student to have an intrinsic desire to participate and thrive in the learning,
Hmm.
right? To your point, we don't want them to be there just because they need to meet the standard or because they need to prepare for the test on Friday or because their parents place value on it. We want them to place value on it. And we want them to be able to articulate why it's valuable, right? Part of the whole reason I started this work and started this journey is because I felt like I never understood the real world purpose of why we were doing what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
always that kid in the back of the classroom that was like, why do we have to do this? Why is this important?
Hmm.
And there's so many of those students. And so often those questions are kind of brushed off or not given a proper answer to, in my opinion. And for a student to be able to articulate to you, hey, Superintendent Cooper, I have to learn this because it'll help me do XYZ. That's so meaningful, right? And so I think that student voice and choice, as you put it, um, yeah, I'm thrilled to hear that those are priorities.
It's a difference maker, Aiden. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm walking through the hall, and actually, I think I was actually showing up at a senior night for one of my students, but they said, "Hey, Dr. Cooper, tomorrow, what are you doing around, whatever time it was, 2 o'clock, 1:45, something?" Well, I'm not sure my calendar has because you got to come check this out. We just launched Venture Studio, and I'm like, "What's Venture Studio?" It's something we created on our own where we're going to be connecting students to entrepreneurs in our community so that they can understand how to, if they have a startup business idea, how they can actually start up their business and potentially make a profit, but they're going to have these entrepreneurs there to be as consultants. Now, this is something that's not in, I mean, yeah, does it meet standards? Lots of standards, communication standards, financial standards, all kinds of things. We didn't come up with that idea. We just created the space and the environment for them to take off. And the students, we said, yes. And then they created it and they're going. But I mean, I can give you hundreds of those examples. And that to me is the definition of what we're trying to go for with personalization. They created it, they're running with it, and they're blowing standards out of the water and they're doing things that are real to them.
That's amazing. Yeah,
And
I
they
mean,
know why.
yeah,
So,
they know why it's real. And the other piece that we really highlight too is, you said like it meets lots of standards naturally, right? But you guys didn't create it. And I think the important piece to note there is there's not one way to meet a financial standard. There's not
mhm,
one way to meet a communication standard. So why do we abide by this one size fits all model that implies that the only way to meet the standard is the way that's prescribed to this school, this class, this student, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
you're
yeah, I
right.
think I think that piece is super important. And yeah, that's
And
awesome.
I mean, think about young people today coming in. Think about how they interact with the world. They're not looking to interact with a world that's telling them you should do this like this. That's like the opposite of the world. Their world is I'm designing it any way I want to design it. I mean, this is how the world like. And so if our learning environment is so different than that, that's concerning. I'm not saying we need to be on their phones or on technology, but that philosophical approach of I have to understand why that's going to drive me, and I should be able to personalize it in the way that meets my needs.
Yeah,
That's the world we're living in. So we have to get smart about that.
100%. I think controlled chaos a little bit is what we need. The chaos of not necessarily a prescribed curriculum or sequence of standards or work, but control in the sense of these are the general kind of guiding forces that we want you to work through. But we want you to have the ownership of understanding and choosing how you do that. So, moving towards kind of the future of education here, where do you hope that not only the work for personalized learning, but just education as a whole, kind of think 50 years out, what do you want education to look like?
So 50 years, I'm hoping this happens faster than 50 years, but in the future, what I hope to see, this is what we've been talking a lot about here, and we've been trying to find partners to potentially create and design this. I don't know, but imagine if every student has, I'm just going to use AI because that's what we know today. That's the context I'm in. But if every student staff member, actually, if every constituent had an AI assistant that was helping guide them through personalized learning in a way, it's enhancing their experience. So it's not replacing a teacher, it's not replacing a student, it's not replacing thinking, but it's actually challenging them to think deeper and freeing up time with tasks that no longer need maybe the human to do those tasks, but is allowing the human to tap into these higher level skills of critical thinking, analysis, decision making, and it's becoming that partner. That's what we hope, and it's specific and personal to you. So, as a superintendent, I would be able to interact with in a way that would give me real time data to make decisions on allocating resources in a timely manner. It would also give me predictive data to say, hey, here's a trend that's starting to happen in your district. That if you can get ahead of this, you can actually change the trajectory in a way that's actually going to align with your vision as a district. So those are the kind of things I think like, but you could see that being for every student, every parent, every staff member. So that's where I see it going in the future. And again, I hope that it creates maximum flexibility, maximum choice, uh, deep engagement, and also really authentic collaboration that's intentional so that it's connecting humans in a deeper way. So it might be placing a group of students together that have very diverse thoughts, and those thoughts are coming together in that diversity. And because we have trained the human skills so well, because now we can spend more time on the human skills, because some of that content is just gonna be part of our interaction with the AI, whatever we're using, assistant. So now we're training people to have thoughtful dialogue with each other. I don't agree with you on this. So here's where my beliefs are. That's great. So now we're having these good, healthy, civil conversations, deep dives. Whereas right now, I don't know that in education we've made it to that. I mean, obviously in our world we haven't made it to that quite yet, but I see it allowing us to create that kind of a space and that kind of a future, and really exciting, and I think kids are going to still need right now what I think it could be, I could be pushed on this, but I think all of our students are going to need a baseline, and we'll establish. And I think we're getting closer on like, yeah, you're going to need to know some basic math and mental math. You're going to need to know some of those things, some physics principles and how the world works around you, and reading and writing, like understand how to do some of those things. But then hopefully we can move quicker to some of those higher level thinking things, and personalize that with your interests. So if Aiden, you were like a soccer star in high school or whatever, they would be able to tweak the language around that so that even the experiences and the prior knowledge that you're coming in with, it knows that and it remembers it. So it's
Oh yeah.
connecting you to those things to advance your learning. I know it's general, but we would love to create that here. That's what we're trying to go for. I'm sure it'll be way better than 50 years, but I would like to see that in the next 5 to 7 years.
Well, listen, I kind of feel like you're messing with me a little bit, and you like crawled into the back of my brain and stole my thoughts and stuff, because a lot of that, for better or for worse, we're doing right now actually.
Okay.
And a lot of it is a part of our vision, and we can go deeper into that offline. But just for like the interest piece, I mean, our core example of like our platform serving that personalized need for students. We had a student in Westchester County at a district we work with who interest was the Philadelphia Eagles. And
Hmm.
literally the day after the Super Bowl, Monday after the Super Bowl, their assignment was about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles winning the Super Bowl the night before. So
Yeah,
our whole thing, like I said, is personalization at a human level. And part of that is engaging a student based on things that they actually care about, right? And not just kind of like fantasy, fairy tale, oh, you're a basketball coach, blah, blah, blah. No, like this is pulling real information and engaging the student with something that they have context and care for already.
that's great. And hopefully then the system will then maybe even pick up if you're within a district, right? So then it would pick up data points across the district and say, "Oh, you like the Eagles. Well, you know what? You might want to connect with
Yep.
so and so because they also have been writing about the Eagles." Or, "Oh, here's a person that actually likes the Lions. You might want to have a conversation about why."
Yep.
I don't know. But that's the kind of things. And then if you can inform them, the teacher, that just fast forwards and makes a teacher's life so much easier to connect and build that
Exactly.
relationship, which will essentially turn into trust because they know their kids. When
Exactly.
kids feel seen and heard, and teachers can fast forward that process, it helps trust to build faster. So
That's
yeah, I
that
love that.
that's the language I always use is we want students to feel seen, right? I mean, maybe the Philadelphia Eagles or New York Giants is something that kids share a lot in common, right, in this area or whatever. But maybe a kid who has a way more niche interest, right, and maybe
Hmm.
they feel like a little bit of an outcast, or they feel like they're the only one that likes this, right? That's not true. And number
Right.
one, and number two, even if that is the case, even if you are the only one in your class who likes that, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have an experience that is representative of things you care about, right?
Right.
And then just as a quick side note, I would also use kind of those grouping capabilities to tell that Eagles fan to maybe avoid the Cowboys fan on the other side of the building. Uh,
That's right.
or
You
maybe
might
they could
not
have
want to switch
an
it.
intellectual debate on it and we could stimulate some academics there.
Yeah, but your point of a unique niche that a kid has, what's hard for a teacher is when they have a case, maybe they might have a class load of 150 kids, or they might have, a more self-contained of 25, 26, 27 kids, to know all the stories. It's a
Yeah.
lot. And
Yeah.
so if they had tools that remembered over time and could educate them on the stories quicker. And in 50 years, I think they're going to they'll have, I don't know, something in their glasses that I'm interacting with Aiden. He's a student of mine. And oh my goodness, you should bring this up. All of a sudden, you now have conversation starters. You have a reminder of, and so you don't have to, it just helps the teacher. It could even, I mean, imagine this for well-being. It could even allow the teacher to, if this if AI is working to design all these experiences at night, while the teacher now has the freedom to connect with their family at night instead of all the things that teachers do today, this could just help the profession in general to be have our folks be healthier, not burn out as quick. It might be more attractive of a profession. So there's a lot of things that I think we sometimes just think of the learning, but all of the human wellness pieces that could come out of this if we do it well, if we
A
do it
hundred
right.
percent. 100%. I always say I think a teacher's superpower is the time they spend with students, right?
Yes.
It's not the
Yep.
time grading at 7 o'clock at
Right.
night while they're eating their dinner. And listen, I mean, some teachers maybe they like grading or maybe they're the best grader on the planet, but the true value that a teacher can create in their
Yep.
role is in that relationship and interaction with the student. So my job, my thinking is what can I do to eliminate all the rest and make it so that they have as much time and as much information as possible to make that the core thing that they do.
That'd be great. Yeah, my parents are both teachers. I remember watching my mom fall asleep almost every night grading papers just because she was exhausted doing that in the evening after dinner. And so I think now, boy, if there were the AI tools we have today or even tomorrow, that could all be happening and things being prepped and personalized and ready, and then to prep her and give her all the tools she needs to walk in, but then she can just enjoy and be refreshed in the evening and come back the next day and have all that ready. That would be outstanding
A hundred
for the
percent.
profession in general.
100%. So both parents being teachers, can I assume that that's kind of what steered you towards education?
Yeah, it actually, I tried to run away from it for a while because when you both your parents are teachers, you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to go
Yeah.
do my own thing. But then I just got closer and closer to the realization, and you start tripping over the truth, and like, actually, I find lots of joy in seeing someone go from one point in their learning to the next point, and I could do this for a living. And then I fell in love with leadership and got into this role. But yeah, it is. It's in our blood. It's what we do. It's kind of the family business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, as far as kind of your passion towards leadership, we spent a good part of the beginning here talking about kind of the actions that you take as a leader. And I know you mentioned the love, learn, and lead kind of 3 word rules you live
Yeah.
by. What are some other kind of words or concepts that you really try to emphasize as a leader to your people?
Well, I'll give you one really practical. So, with my executive team and my district level leadership team, one of the things that we do, a practice that we have held to for this is my 8th year as superintendent. We've been doing this for 8 years, but we do something at the beginning of every meeting. We read something together. So we do call it a read to lead. It doesn't sound like anything like groundbreaking, but when you read with your leaders together, like it's usually maybe a Harvard Business Review article or something that's in the business world, typically in leadership, just saying like, how do we step out on the balcony so that we can get out of the day to day craziness for a second, see out there, and then how do we look into the future and how this applies towards our vision and what should we be doing as leaders to create that experience for others. That has been a great practice for us. Another practice that we use to keep ourselves anchored and aligned is we read a book called Measure What Matters by John Doerr, and I know Google and a lot of places use this, but they use an OKR system, objectives and key results. We really bought into that, and so we've been using seals on our website too, but we've been using an OKR system to say there's lots of things we do as a school district, lots of things every day, every year. But we need to figure out what are the primary things we're focused on this year. Because if you focus on these and try to measure them, then you actually will make progress and you can show that progress to your community and build leadership capacity. So that's another thing. And then I'd say a third thing that has helped me as a leader is we do a rhythm of work, very intentional. So on certain parts of the month, we'll have certain meetings that cascade throughout the organization, very intentional with our communication cadence and our rhythm of work. And that will start with one on ones. So I'll do some one on ones just to hear. If you were one of my executive team members, you'd come in with your agenda. I'd listen, hear those things. I would look for themes and try to connect the dots for people. And then we would then have our leadership team meeting. And so some of those items would become our agenda items. So it's just a very intentional, methodical flow to our month at a time so that when we come to the end of the month, we can see the progress we've made on topics and not just be like, so what are we doing? It's never like that here. It's very intentional.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day in leadership, it's who you surround yourself with. You hire smart people, and I try to hire the smartest people I can find. The most talented people, I try to recruit them, and sometimes they say no the first 3 times. Ask them a fourth time. Like I just keep recruiting, very persistent. Get the best people around you, and they'll push you to be better. They'll push everybody to be better.
100%. 100%. I mean, my rule is I want every single person I hire, I want to be smarter than me
Yeah,
in
that's
what they're
key.
doing, right? I mean, if I'm the smartest person here, then I have problems because
Yeah,
I just need to make sure everyone's kind of meshing and mixing together and they're doing
yeah,
the real thinking over there. That's
that's right.
cool.
You got it.
That's cool, man. Well, it sounds like you guys have a really amazing leadership structure there, a lot of intentionality, especially just in like the frameworks and words that you're using, right? It's not random. Everything is chosen
No,
carefully. And I think that translates obviously to Mason City being one of the highest performing districts. One of the key things that I kind of mentioned in the intro about Mason City that I'd love for you to dive deeper into is the diversity, right? Over a
sure.
hundred different spoken languages, a bunch of different demographics represented. Can you talk about what that means to you guys?
Yeah, so when you have 100 different languages and countries and cultures and experiences all coming together in one place, it can be messy at times. And so this is a district that grew really quickly overnight from 2002 to now. It just boomed and changed overnight. And so right now, I think our right now our demographics have just they've gone like one population or Asian population from 2002 being maybe like 2%, now 36%,
Wow.
39%, something like that. So it's just like overnight things have changed quickly. And your staff, when you hire back in 2002, the majority of our staff speak one language. They have a very similar experience because we were growing so fast. They're all getting hired from this area, so they all know what they know. And so we have had to learn to build a culture of curiosity here, where we're asking lots of questions. We give lots of opportunities. We call mirrors and windows events. So mirrors and windows events are set up where you can basically the mirror is helping you see who you are in this environment and this culture to understand that, windows into other people's cultures. And so at those we'll have food tastings, we'll have cultural dances, music, and everything, so that we're educating our not just our school community, but beyond our school community to understand this is who we are. We're changing, and it's a beautiful thing. And so we really try to celebrate that diversity. But it didn't just happen easily overnight. I mean, it's very intentional work. That's what we call inclusive excellence here. We spend a lot of time defining our words so we know what they mean, being very clear with those, not allowing the media or someone else to define them for us, but just being really thoughtful and at the end of the day, making sure people feel like when you come to Mason, if you're relocating to Mason from around the world, you're going to find a place that you can call home and feel like you're seen, you're honored. Your story matters, which is one of our core values here. Your story matters. And so we think of ways to really highlight. And so that comes down to real practical, like training for teachers when you're opening up your school year. What are you doing to make sure stories are being shared with you? Imagine that the scenario we talked about with AI, in 50 years, you start to get stories in there and educating educators quicker on those stories. And it will even break down some of the language barriers for us. I think it's doing more of that now, but I think it'll be pretty slick in the future. It'll be a good thing, especially for districts like ours, because those are some of the barriers. Like those language barriers are real. And so you might be in a class and have 25, 26 kids, and you'll have five major languages that are taking place. And you're trying to figure, and you might speak one. So you're trying to figure out how do I navigate this? And then there's cultural norms within there. So we have folks coming from different parts of the world that have very different views on the way they dress, the way they interact with people, when they might need time for quiet times and different things set up, and when they're fasting. So we're just really trying to be really thoughtful about how do we create a space that all of that can work within a almost like a little community and city within our buildings.
Yeah, I mean, I can just imagine the difficulty in trying to make space for all of that, but I think the effort there is what matters, and I think students feel that, and it's clear again just through learning about your community and student body that's really something you guys take pride in. So it's really cool.
It's worth it, and I'll tell you, I've learned so much, and I've been invited to so many great events and into homes and broken bread with lots of different families for different events that they cherish in their homes. And we've also messed it up. I mean, we've messed it up plenty where we'll communicate something and be like, "Oh, we did not even realize like our intent was good, but the impact was not." And so, it's humbling. And
Yeah,
if you're an organization that can be humble and be agile and be curious and just admit it when you're wrong and say you're sorry, that builds trust too. And so we've had to do that plenty. And you learn over time, you get
yep,
better and smarter. And we always say another value we have is better tomorrow than we were today. And so
yeah.
that is something we try to live by.
Yep, I love it. I love it. Well, Jonathan, man, this was great to get to know you and your district a little bit. Any final words, places people can find you? Any shout outs to the community over there?
If you check us out online, I really encourage people to check us out. If you're in Cincinnati, come by and see us. But Mason City Schools, you'll find us online. If you want to follow any of our stuff, you can find us on Instagram. Facebook, I think, is out there for a lot of our parents, and where you'll find our sports and everything else. And you can find me personally on Cooper Learns. So at Cooper Learns, Instagram's usually where I hang out most of the time anymore. But yeah, love to connect. If you have any questions, want to reach out, learn more, it's please do. We'd love to talk to you more.
There we go. You heard the man. Jonathan, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Got an idea, a story, or a question about what we discussed today? We'd love to hear from you. To learn more about Unique Learn, follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube, and visit uniquelearn.co.